Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from QuantumListing, and thank you for joining us today. This is our first Ask Me Anything, and so hopefully you'll have lots of good questions for me. I always like a good question. And let's see. It is I guess time to get started. So here is our agenda for today. First, for those of you that are new to quantum listing, we are going to tell you what it is. Then we'll open the floor up to you. And just in case it's a shy crowd, I think Julia has prepared some questions for me as well from our team. And let's jump right into it. So Quantum Listing is a commercial real estate listing service. It gives your listings maximum exposure by offering a range of features so you can market your properties without breaking your budget. And you can post an unlimited number of listings with the ability to market them on all forms of popular social media, and there's no paywall for potential buyers or tenants to view your properties on our site. In fact, I would say 60 to 65% or so of our traffic each month comes from organic Google searches. So people are, searching for commercial real estate in their market or wherever they're looking. They're seeing our listings, your listings really, on the first page of those Google searches, and they're clicking on them and they're coming in to see them, and there's no paywall or registration required. So, as many people as possible are able to see your listings. I'm a commercial real estate broker, just like most of you out there that are watching and listening. And I started Quantum Listing because I was kind of frustrated with the choices I had, and the choices I had sort of became merged when CoStar bought LoopNet, and then they started jacking up the prices, and they made it a little more difficult to get access to listings in sort of an effort to force you to pay more and upgrade to CoStar. So, we've heard from many of our members that they share that same frustration, and they're glad that we're out there trying to fight the good fight and give you guys an alternative. We're not alone in this battle. There are other good listing services out there that are doing the same thing. We all have slightly different approaches, and we like ours. But if you guys have suggestions on ways we can improve our service, we are always willing to listen to what you have to say. And many of the features that we have implemented on our site actually do come from users like you. So the first question I have here is, how did I get into commercial real estate, and how long have I worked in the industry? So I got into commercial real estate because in college, I, particularly in my last year, I was overcome by a case of hubris. I thought that I was going to get into a graduate program in English at Oxford University in England. And so I didn't do any on-campus interviewing. And, a couple of weeks before my graduation, I got rejected from that graduate program in English at Oxford University. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I spent the summer applying to jobs at investment banks. And when I was moving recently to Connecticut, I found a box that had a file in it that had about 20 plus rejection letters from various investment banks. So that didn't work out too well. And I had an uncle who had a restaurant in New Jersey, where I was living at the time, called 40 Love. It had a turn of the century tennis motif because it was near a famous lawn tennis club that had one of the warm-up tournaments for the U.S. Open back when it was on grass courts. And my aunt and uncle who owned the restaurant were big tennis enthusiasts. And my aunt, unfortunately, had gotten very sick, and my uncle asked me to come in and help manage the restaurant so that he could have some eyes and ears there that he didn't have to worry about robbing the cash register. I did not rob the cash register, just for the record. And so that doesn't answer the question, how did I get into commercial real estate yet? After working there for about a year and a half or so, I helped my uncle sell the restaurant. And that is how I got into commercial real estate, because that process kind of intrigued me. And I had a family friend who was suggesting that I think about being, get into real estate development, and it will, but before I could become a developer, I really needed to understand the industry and meet people and figure out how value was created in our industry. And so I became a commercial real estate salesperson. I was living in New York at that time, so I got my New York license, and that was in 1986. So I've been doing this for almost 35 years now, hard to believe. In 1989, I left the company that I was working for because I did find a project that I wanted to develop, and didn't want to do that while working in somebody else's office. So I had gotten my broker's license by then, and then I started my own company and started developing, and over time developed about 1,300,000 square feet of retail space with my development partnership. We subsequently sold off all the shopping centers, and now I focus on brokerage and quantum listing. So that answers question one. We do have a question from Steve Briscoe, which is, how long will it take commercial office space to recover to pre-COVID levels? Wow, good question, Steve. And if there are other brokers on this call that would like to chime in with their opinions, because every market's a little bit different, I would welcome your input as well. I would say, from my point of view, it will be, and based on what happened after the Great Recession, back in 2008, it's going to take good 4 or 5 years, I think, for the office market to completely recover, and it may take even longer for the retail market. Industrial is going strong, and I don't see that changing. Multifamily, I think, is also doing well. I think for maybe the next couple of years, people might be avoiding cities because they don't want to be in densely populated areas as much as they might have a year ago. But anybody, I know we've got some people from all over the country. Richard or Bill or Jay, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? And you can unmute yourself or put something in the chat if you prefer.
Yeah, well, I'm down here in West Central Florida, Sarasota area, and I don't see office space as being that much overbuilt at this point. Inventories are increasing, but I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as some areas. But you're definitely right on retail. That's going to be challenging for several years for sure.
I'm in Little Rock, and I pretty much agree with you about office spaces. Certainly, there's more of it, but I mean, it's we haven't had any great out migration.
Oh, that's good to hear. And in fact, in my brokerage business, I say that in the last month, there's been a big uptick in interest in office space. So maybe I'm being overly pessimistic. Uh, it's interesting though. It's sort of doctors, it's dentists, it's that I'm showing space to. Another a med spa, which is a fancy name for somebody who injects Botox and fillers, uh, things like that. So it may not necessarily be the office deals that I would have done a few years ago, but there certainly are people who have to have offices. Uh, I don't see doctors going back and doing house calls again for numerous reasons. So I think okay, I'm going to check myself there and say it won't take 5 years. It'll be less than that. Uh, and I think that just from like the office.
It depends a lot on your local market, I think. Some places are definitely in an overbuild situation, but it's where are you located at, Dave?
I'm in Connecticut, sort of a metropolitan New York area. Um,
Okay.
yeah. The
Yeah.
one thing that I was really impressed with in my last few site tours, though, is how the landlords that have cash, like the REITs or near REIT type landlords, have used the time to do some really serious upgrades to their buildings. Not just the air filtration systems, because everybody walking into those buildings touring for space is asking, what are you doing for COVID? But it's, the lobby areas are, being upgraded. Uh, they're adding seating areas in the lobby so that I think people who don't want to be, congregating in small groups in their office have, place to spread out. Uh, in the lobbies and other places, they're adding, they're making them look a little bit more like, the hotel lobbies where, they'll have, high top tables, they'll have, a coffee bar and things like that. So it is kind of interesting to see that there is a lot of reinvestment into the office market by those that can afford to do it. And I think that will help attract people back into offices as well.
Hey, David, Bill has a great question slash comment in the chat.
Okay. Let's hear more about quantum listing. All right. Bill, you're that kind of guy. So I started quantum listing about 5+ years ago. Originally, it was an iPhone app because as I just like everybody else became more and more dependent on my cell phone. I thought it would be a great way to do it. And at that time, the mobile apps for the other listing services weren't particularly good. And the mobile apps are great for doing research on the fly. However, they're not as good for doing the data entry. So then we ended up building out a full website. So, and I came, just for some real deep background on me. My family was in the supermarket business in the Northeast, and from the time I was a little kid, I had this sort of high volume, low margin mentality drilled into me. And so, in creating quantum listing, I really wanted to make it affordable for absolutely anybody, and the to have it affordable for anybody, so that it would be like a no-brainer decision. And we have grown from nothing to about 6,500 registered members. I think today we'll probably hit the 26,000 active listing threshold. And one of the things that you'll find out if you use quantum listing for your space search is that I would say that a higher percentage of the listings on our site are actually active listings with available space. One of the things that drives me crazy when I'm doing research for customers is, going on, listing websites, and you see a listing, it looks great, then you call the broker to verify whether it's still available or not, and they tell you it isn't. And why is that? Brokers like billboards, and a listing on a website is a digital billboard, and it got me to call them, so it gets customers to call them, and whether they're doing a bait and switch or they just forgot to take it down, for whatever reason, it ends up wasting my time, because I'd rather just use my time in productive research instead of scratching things off the list. So you will find that most of the stuff on our site is available, and that's because a lot of it comes in through these syndication partnerships. So those listings are getting updated more regularly. So I wanted to be able to create this affordable, very sort of democratic website and democratic not in the political sense for anybody of any political stripe, just in the true sense where it's everybody has equal footing and is able to put their stuff up on there without having to go bankrupt, or do 10 more deals just so you can afford your listing service. So that's kind of what, and also the other thing is, because I had been developing shopping centers and I was selling them off, I wanted to find another way to develop long-term equity, because brokerage is a great business, but as all the brokers here know, you got to go out and do that every single year. And the nice thing about having equity in a shopping center or in a website like this is that once you get it working right, you get the check every quarter, and it helps stabilize your income over time. So that was, plus I like the brokerage business, but I also feel like I need to use my creative energy on something else. So I think those are the things that got me, or what motivated me to start QuantumListing. So it's interesting. Let me, I guess, pause and see if anybody else has any questions before we ask the next question that Julia put up there. Anybody have anything that they, so more about QuantumListing? I'll say a little bit more. So you can do, add as many listings as you want with QuantumListing for the same $89.99 a year. And one of the things that gives us the ability to do is to add a separate listing for each individual space. And this is something that I have found super valuable, particularly now, because if I have a separate listing for each individual space, then I can have separate pictures, floor plans, and video for each individual space. And the other thing, which isn't something that a broker would necessarily think about, but a tech person would, is that having 3 or 4 or 5 spaces gives me 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities to rank first on a Google search results page. So there's a better chance that I'm going to end up on the first page of a search with more listings. So that is one of my hot tips for today. I have a question here from Richard. Compare myself, QuantumListing, I presume, to Crexi and Catalyst. Okay. Catalyst has done a very good job of marketing to the commercial real estate uh, broker associations. And I think that is one thing they do really well. I haven't really spent much time on Catalyst, so I don't know exactly how they operate. Crexi I've spent a little bit more time on, and the one thing that I prefer with QuantumListing to what Crexi does is that they like anytime you want information or more information about something, the visitor has to register, or if they're already registered, log in for that. And with QuantumListing, anybody can see any listing, and it's a little rougher for the membership because they're not getting as many leads, but the leads that they're getting on our site are real leads. These are people who are very willingly volunteering their information, their phone number and email address. So I think that with Crexi, you're getting leads that aren't truly leads, but I haven't spent that much time on it, so I could be mistaken about it. The other thing about
I can speak to this part because this comes up in a lot of my conversations with people. I would say the other thing, like regarding what you just said with the paywall, is the fact that the experience for the visitor is just a lot less frustrating because you basically can go to any listing and without having to register or do anything, you can off the bat make a phone call and not worry about having to go through this lengthy process of becoming a Crexi member. We want people to become QuantumListing members, but we also want you guys to get your phone call right away and not have to have this hold up. So that's something that people tell me a lot in terms of what they like about Quantum as opposed to Crexi. So yeah.
Okay. And one other thing about Crexi is that they are currently embroiled in a lawsuit with CoStar, who has made the claim that they have systematically taken CoStar's intellectual property. That's for the courts to decide. If you followed the Xceligent matter a few years ago, and you know that Xceligent is no longer in business because they were accused of the same thing by CoStar, and CoStar seems to have been right. So I can tell you, we grow the slow, old-fashioned way, which is honestly, and word of mouth helps us a lot. So if you like QuantumListing, please tell your colleagues about it, get them involved. Please, if you're adding listings, pay your $89.99 a year. It's worthwhile for a bunch of reasons. First of all, it helps us continue to be able to innovate and add new features. And secondly, you get your emails with your leads sent directly to you if your membership lapses. Anybody who's clicking on your email address or calling you can still reach you and see your contact information, but there's like a little pop-up that comes up after 15 seconds to prompt people to give you their information if they're really interested. And so that, and if they fill that out, it generates an email, which you would get right away if you're an active member. Otherwise, you have to depend on our generosity. And look, we all know that the sooner you reach a lead, the more likely it is that you'll end up working with them. So, I do that. Plus, you get to see your analytics if you are a current member. And if you have principals to whom you have to or want to report the activity on your listings, having those analytics at hand is another good piece of information to give to those principals. And then the other thing is that you can use all of our features if your membership is current, and that includes sending out email blasts through our service, adding listing promotion, so that your listings show up at the top of searches. And I know that in like LoopNet you have diamond, platinum, super mega ultra platinum, and it costs you hundreds or thousands of dollars for some of those options. Nothing we have on our site costs you that much money, because we really want you to be able to use them and afford them, and come back and use them again, and tell your friends to use them as well. So the one of the really cool features that we have is this thing where you can, with just a few clicks, have your listings advertised on the Google Display Network. So for like $25, your ad will run for 4 or 5 days in the market you specify, and you'll get tens of thousands of views on websites where your customers regularly visit. Could be a news site, it could be a sports site, any number of different types of websites. And hold on, we lost my screen. Hang on.
Sorry, I had an accident. My bad.
So you can do that. Like we had a guy take an ad just the other day, and it takes Google a day or two to approve these ads, particularly like on a holiday weekend like this past one. And so anyway, he just did it, and then I was looking at Google Analytics a little while before this, and all of a sudden I saw this guy had gotten 14 clicks on his listing in his market. So whether that resulted in any leads or inquiries, I don't know. We do see if somebody fills out that pop-up form. We don't really know who's clicking on your phone number or email, nor do we really want to know. We just hope that but so the fact that this guy generated 14 views on his listing with a $25 ad spend, and that was within a half-hour period. So he and that listing will run on these different sites for probably 4 or 5 days. So we'll keep an eye on it and see how many views he gets overall. But it sounds like he's on the road to getting like 30 or 40 views from just that $25 spend. I mean, I don't know if you've done Google search advertising, but in an asset class like commercial real estate, it can cost anywhere, depending on what market you're in, between $5 a click and $25 a click for an asset class like commercial real estate. Google has an auction system, and you can limit how much you want to spend, but if your bid is too low, you really don't get any views, or you're not going to show up on that all-important first page. We sort of, through the display network, avoid that, and it's, I guess, a little bit less targeted, but because of machine learning and Google's artificial intelligence, they're able to serve your ad to an affinity group, to people who are most likely to be interested in commercial real estate. So let's see. And then, okay, I guess I'll keep talking, and I see Julia had something in the chat saying, should we show you around the site? So let's do that. It's always fun. Okay, so here we go. So here is my profile page for Perlmutter Properties, and this has my listing. So one of the things, and I'll just share a something that we've sort of stumbled on recently, and it has been super effective. Now, I know, when people are sending out email blasts, they'll say, prime retail corner for lease, or, things that have sort of real estate ease in them. But when you're adding listings to a site like ours, and you have the opportunity to give it a title, my advice would be to think about how the people that are searching for real estate on the internet are going to phrase their search. So it's going to be much more basic. Nobody thinks, gee, I want to find a prime corner. They would think, I want a store for lease in Chappaqua. I want an office for rent in Montvale. And so if you title your listing like that, it may seem kind of boring and dull, but it is super effective in getting you on the first page of a Google search. So that's another hot tip for you. And we had, when we started, when we realized this like a month or so ago, I changed the titles on my listings, and they now are almost universally on the first page of Google searches, and the members who've done the same thing are seeing very similar results. The other thing,
Yeah, I'll add one
yeah.
thing here on that, David, is that when we first started noticing some of the really great results on Google, we would put them into these weekly webinars, and we picked some of our users who were featured in our blog posts and who we knew had a large amount of content on our site. And for a little bit, David was like, all right, it's a little bit of cherry picking, we're picking the good examples. I can say now that I'm not going to say a number, but the amount of people who, when I search their name and with commercial real estate attached to it or real estate listings, the amount of searches that have QuantumListing's profile at the top of the first page of the search results, sometimes above LoopNet, sometimes right below it, has been like outstanding, especially since the beginning of the year. So that's been really, really exciting and very, very promising.
Yeah. And if you're ever in doubt about what to title one of your listings, my advice would be to do a Google search for whatever you think is comparable in your market, and see what the subject line for the results that come up are, and steal as much of that stuff for your own listings as you can, in terms of so if you see that it's office for lease, or in some markets, just replicate what you see working for other people, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel here or be excessively creative when what people who are looking for, especially now that people mostly, or not mostly, but more than half of searches now are done on people's mobile devices, and a good chunk of those are people, instead of typing with on the little keyboard with their thumbs, they're hitting the button where they're saying, find me office for rent in Montvale, and so think of sort of like I think they're called natural language searches, and you're creating long tail keywords for Google. I don't want to overload you with search engine jargon, but think the way somebody who doesn't really know about real estate is going to be doing that search. Your broker colleagues are going to have no problem finding your listing. What you're looking for is how can I best reach the customers who are going to be my end users or my buyers. What am I? How are they going to ask for what I have to offer? So my suggestion there. So one of we mentioned the so here's listings, and these are some of my active listings. After I sell or lease something, or if a listing expires before I do that, I archive the listing so that if it becomes an active listing again, then all I have to do is reactivate it and do less and update it and add less. So there's less data entry the second time around. The other advantage to doing that is you can add private notes to any of the listings on the site, are either your own listing or somebody else's. So, so, in like this is a 200 square foot 1-year lease that kicked off my 2021. Fortunately, most of the other deals I'm working on are a little more juicy than 200 feet for a year. But this is you should never say no to a deal, because they could be a source of good referrals. You treat everybody with respect. I think it pays off in the long term. So we could say leased in January 2021, or the other thing that I use these for is when I need little reminders about when to collect my commissions. I can put that in the private notes as well. So if you do, when you do sell or lease something, my advice is to archive it rather than delete it. And an archive listing is really only visible to you. Saved listings, which is the next thing in this.
David, we have another question from Richard. He said, "Can I find sold comps?"
Not yet. We do ask people when they're archiving or deleting their listings to add them to our comp database. As you know, Richard, people are very protective of their comp data, and sometimes it's covered by confidentiality requirements in listing agreements. So we are building a comp database, but right now I would say if we made it public, it would be more frustrating than helpful. So it's still a closed part of our site in terms of access to that information. But hopefully, in the next year, we'll be able to make that more publicly available. If you haven't tried CompStack, I think they've got a lot of good comp information. I think they'll give you like 4 or 5 comps for free up front, and then I think there's like a quid pro quo where if you add a comp, you can get a comp. And you may be able to buy comp packages from them as well. So try CompStack at CompStack if you have never used them. And let's see. Okay, so thank you, Julia, for adding that in there. So saved listings, which is the next item here in this submenu, you can pretty self-evident, but if as you're going through the site and you see a listing that interests you, just click on the little ribbon at the top, and you can then review it later and find it here in your saved listings. Online advertisement was what I was talking about with the Google display ads. And it's a very easy process. We'll get to showing you that stuff if you want and have time. How are we doing for time? 3:42. Okay, well, we're good for time so far. So another thing that we added in 2020 to the site was wants listings. And a lot of times we'll get requirements from our customers, and we won't necessarily find anything right away for them. And so what we did is we decided to create these wanted listings. So you can, it's a very simple process. I'll show you what it looks like to add. The wanted image is added by our system. So you add a title, transaction type, asset type, and you can add rent or just leave it as 0 square feet that you're looking for. If you switch to land, then it becomes acres. And then when you need it, add the area that you want it in. If there's any particular description that you want to add, throw that in there as well. The wanted listings show up in our feed just like any other listing. Plus, another great thing for landlord reps to know is that you can search by wanted also. So if you want to see if somebody's posted a wanted in an area that you work, so that you can co-broke with them, that's just a nice little feature. So hopefully another way that you can get some business. We also have the capacity in our networks, our groups, to have a group chat. So you can, if you're we assign, when you join QuantumListing, we'll assign you that first week to a network and a group. Networks and groups are somewhat similar. Networks are a little more top-down in that we assign that to you. It's a great way to see the listings in your market. You can see in the network news, it shows you what has been added or updated recently, so you can stay hyper alert to what is happening in your market without having to get a onslaught of emails about it. And then the groups have that same feature, but you can also see, you can chat with your group. So if I wanted to, post a requirement in the Connecticut group, I would, start typing, and then I could also, so say I had a new listing in Connecticut, I can, put a little spiel about my listing, and then add a hyperlink. So I could add, a link to my QuantumListing listing or my website there, so that people who are seeing this message will be able to click on it and then learn everything about the listing. And people who are in your group, when there's new messages in the group, they'll get an email at the end of the day or the start of the next day, saying that you have a new message, and there's a link to it, and they can click on it and then see your marketing message. So it's a great way for you to sort of communicate with your colleagues without having to send another email to them. So that's good. The other thing, speaking of email, let me go back to okay. So I was just at this listing this morning, showing space to a OBGYN doctor. So you can send your listings via email, and one of the nice things about this part of the site is that if you use Constant Contact or MailChimp, which are fantastic services, you have to create an email template for that. So with this service, we do that for you. It's somewhat no frills, but it has the basic information about it. You add your subject line here. If you want to add Prime corner here, that's okay. It's an email. It's not. It's not something that's going to be found on the internet. And then add a short message here, and it's probably, I think our limit is about 200 characters or so. So really short message, because what your objective here is not for somebody to read a really long email about your listing, but to go see the listing. And then have the big description of your listing on the actual listing. Another, reason when you're actually putting your listings in to have a good description there is all your pictures and your description are content for search engines to index and rank. And by having a better description on your listings, again, you're more likely to show up at the top of those searches. So you can send it to one or two people by putting a comma in between the email addresses. But if you really want to get ambitious and send it to an email list of a couple hundred people, if you have an Excel file or a CSV file with just a column of email addresses, you can click and add that file, and then add the subject and message and hit send, and it'll get blasted out to a couple hundred people right away by us. It doesn't involve any designing your template or anything like that. So it's a very efficient way to do it. Again, to leave those chat messages and to send those email blasts, you do have to have a current membership for those things. Okay, let's go back to my profile page and see what else. So social, the social.
You see the marketing.
Pardon me?
You see the marketing center?
You want to go to the market? We'll go there next. We'll go there. But so socially, you can follow people. This is good if there are people on Quantum Listing who are active in your market, who you're always going to go check out their listings. Follow them, and then you can then click on following, click on their name, and you'll, if they have listings, you'll see right away what their listings are. Let's pick someone who we know has listings. Why am I not seeing their listings? Okay, because I wasn't doing it right. Okay, so there you go. So you can see their listings, and it's great. All right, so let's go back to the profile page, and Julia is absolutely right that I should show you the marketing center. And so we're going there. So here is where you can, pay for your membership and also access the other premium features on Quantum Listing. So if you wanted to advertise one of your listings, you'd go to online advertisement, and as the GoToMeeting slows things down a little bit, but ordinarily this goes a little faster. So you can pick $25, $50, or $100 to use for advertising your listing. The difference between the dollar amounts is simply the amount of time that they'll run. So a $25 ad will run for 4 or 5 days. A $50 ad will run for 8 to 10 days, and a $100 ad will run for 16 to 20 days typically. So you just click create order, and then you search for the listing that you want to advertise. And once those listings show, and you can see here that I've added, for this building, 5 different listings, for the different spaces in the building. Sorry about that. And he's a good customer of mine. I'll call him back as soon as we're done, I promise. So then you just click it, and then little radio button. You can add multiple things at once if you want, and then by default it will show in the town where your listing is, and otherwise you can, if you don't want it to show there, you can pick up to 2 other locations, or you can have it be in the location where it is, as well as 1 other location. So if I think Montvale, New Jersey is too small catch basin for my ad to run, I might want to say, put the whole county where Montvale is as the target. And then I would click create order. If I decide after, doing that I wanted to run my ad longer, I can change that. So I click create order, and then it goes to PayPal, and you finish your order on PayPal. So, we never get your credit card information or anything like that. It's all done very securely. So let's see, any other questions while I tee up the next feature to show you?
I have a comment, which is
Yeah.
that I just I'm sending out the e-blast that you showed of your space. I'm sending it out to everyone who's on the webinar today so they can see it as an example. So you should get in your email in the next couple of minutes.
Great. So listing promotion is the next feature, and listing promotion is what makes your listing show up at the top of searches on our website in your market. And hold on, sorry. Okay, I missed one. Great. So for $2.50 for a week, or $7.50 for a month, your listing will show up at the top of searches in your market. And I generally do this for all of my listings because I can, and I see, I had all my listings promoted, and then I was looking at the analytics a couple of weeks ago, and I saw that the number of views had dropped off a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I noticed that some of the listing promotions had expired. So I know it's anecdotal, but I can tell you that it really does work. I can show you on the analytics, what happens with that. Email blasts are a oh, there's listing promotion. This is the bundled marketing package, which we just landed on. So this basically saves you some clicking. So if you wanted to have an email blast by us of your listing, a month of listing promotions, and a Google display ad for the listing, you can take care of that in one order. So an email blast is $25 for us to do for you. So this one gives you the email blast, a month of Google, or $25 for Google ads, plus a month of listing promotion. So you're saving about 15% on that. And these other options here just have more added to your Google ad. So just something that saves you a little time and gets you a lot of bang for your buck. Brand promotion is if you want your own marketing message to show up at the top of searches, then do that. So this is a little ad for us, but if you had, say I were doing a search in Tallahassee, and Richard Curtis had an ad here, his marketing message would show up if I was searching Tallahassee. So it's a great way to do that. And if you're doing, personally, I think it's, really great to do the brand promotion and your listing promotion together, because, not only are people seeing your marketing message, and when they click on the ad, they go to your profile, but they're also seeing your listing. So you look kind of like a rock star for not a lot of money by doing that. And did I miss any brand? And I think we got a lead capture. These are leads that come from the landing page of our website for people who aren't logged in, who are just visiting our site and doing a search. They can add what they're looking for, here I'll log out and show you what I mean. So if they start a search here and they want to buy, multifamily property, and then they can create a request, and there are two options that people have here, really three options. So it auto populates from the start of that query with the asset type and transaction type. Then you add the size of the square feet, if not necessarily as applicable for multifamily, your budget and when you want it, if it's a lease, the term, and then you add your contact info, and then you can either, and for those of us that are professionals, we wouldn't necessarily click this one. I confirm that this information may be shared with a professional, so they may contact me to assist me in my search, or so they can click that and this, which would get them a weekly update, or they could just click this and get a weekly update of what's available in their market in that asset class. So it is 4 o'clock, and I guess it's time to wrap up our presentation. But if you do have questions, happy to answer more. And the biggest achievement in the last year is our traffic has grown tremendously. We've added lots of great features, lots of members, lots of listings, and so I think those are probably the biggest achievements. What's next for QuantumListing? More of the same, and more of connecting with you guys to help you, and for you to give us your ideas that we can implement. Here's our pricing. And then if you want to get in touch with us or need some help, there's our How It Works section. You can schedule a demo, click the intercom button in the bottom right, email support, call us on our fancy vanity phone number, or come back to our next webinar and check out our weekly blog posts. Next week, we are going to be doing a Haves and Wants 2.0 marketing session during our webinar on land for sale. So hopefully you'll join us, especially if you have some land that you are marketing or have a customer who's looking for land. You can tell the world what you're looking for. So thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you, Julia, for your help in preparing today and your participation. And we'll see you all the next time.
David, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, hi. I can hear you. It's Elias.
Hi. I guess I'm the only one, at least on the video. Can I ask a question? I have a golf course business and real estate that I want to put up. We just got it going today, and I want to put it up for advertisement. And the schedule of fees and all that appears on the website, or it's something that is in your presentation only?
Yeah. So